Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be showing you guys my take on the branded Eldlich deck, but with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right on into it. Starting off, of course, we run two copies of Fallen of Albaz. Fallen of Albaz is a really powerful card, being the main target for your fusions, and this card does have an effect on field where you can discard one card to fuse with this monster and one monster your opponent controls, which is just really powerful, kind of being a pseudo super polymerization. Continuing on to pair with that, we do run three copies of Branded Fusion, which allows us to fuse one branded monster from our extra deck using Fallen of Albaz and any monster that is required for the summon for one of your fusions. Continuing on, we do run a small Dogmatica package where we do run one copy of Dogmatica Ecclesia the Virtuous. This card is just really powerful, being able to special summon itself if there is a monster from the extra deck currently on the field. And then this card can then search for a Dogmatica card. The only downside to this card is for the rest of the turn, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck. However, you mainly just use this at the end of your combo, so really it doesn't matter too much. Continuing on, we do run one copy of Dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis the Knighted. This card is really powerful, just being able to special summon itself on your opponent's turn, while your opponent controls a monster, and if you control a Dogmatica monster, you can then target one card on the field and negate its effect, which is really powerful. This card also has another effect that if any Dogmatica monster on the field attacks, all Dogmatica monsters gain 1000 attack. That is a permanent gain, however, you can only use it once per turn. Continuing on, I do run, of course, three copies of Nadir Servant. Nadir Servant just says that you can send one monster from the extra deck to the graveyard just to be able to search for a Dogmatica card, which, of course, would be Ecclesia, which will allow us to search our copy of Dogmatica Punishment. Dogmatica Punishment is just really powerful, being able to target one monster on your opponent's side of the field. Then you can send any monster from the extra deck to the graveyard, so that way you can destroy that card. The only downside to this card is that you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck until the end phase of the next turn. However, with being able to send cards like Elder Entity and Tis just to be able to pop another card, that doesn't really matter all too much, because you should be winning during the next turn. Continuing on, we do run two copies of Eldlich the Golden Lord. Eldlich the Golden Lord is just really powerful, being able to destroy one spell or trap on the field just to be able to add this card to your hand, and then you can special summon this card, and then this card gains 1000 attack until the end phase of the next turn, which is just really powerful and able to get over some floodgates that might be messing with our own fields. Continuing on, we of course do run three copies of Scarlet Sanguine. Scarlet Sanguine has the powerful effect of being able to special summon one Eldlich the Golden Lord from your deck to your side of the field. However, it does lock you into zombies for the rest of the turn, so it's best to activate this on your opponent's turn, or if you have no other option and you just need a little bit of extra damage. This card also has a graveyard effect of you can banish this card except on the turn that it was sent to the graveyard, just to be able to set any Golden Land card from your deck to your graveyard. Going into the Golden Land cards, of course, we do run three copies of Conquistador of the Golden Land. This card just says that you can activate this card to special summon this card as a monster. And then if you control a Eldlich the Golden Lord, you can then send one card on the field to the graveyard. So that means that you can send any monster your opponent controls that is not targeting, but it is destruction. So it's non-target destruction, which is actually really powerful. This card has the effect of during the end phase, except the turn that it was sent to the graveyard, you can then set one Elixir spell or trap directly from your deck to the graveyard, which of course would be your Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine. Continuing on, we do run two copies of Hekaro of the Golden Land. This card is really powerful, and I can see arguments for running three copies of this instead. However, I just didn't have the space. However, if y'all can find space, I would suggest you run a third, because this card just says that you can summon this card as a monster, and then if you control an Eldlich the Golden Lord, you can banish one card from your opponent's graveyard. It also, of course, has the effect of in the graveyard. Continuing on, we do run two copies of Hekaro of the Golden Land. This card is really powerful, and if you want to run this card at 3, you can. However, I can only find space for 2. But what this card says is you can special summon this card as a normal monster, and then if you control a Eldlich the Golden Lord, you can then banish one card from your opponent's graveyard as well. This card also has the effect of while this card is in the graveyard, during the end phase, as long as this card was not sent there this turn, you can then banish this card to set one Elixir card from the deck to your side of the field. So that's it for the Eldlich cards. Moving on, we do run a small Bestial Core and two copies of Magnemite and two copies of Jurisworm. Magnemite has the really powerful effect of when this card is summoned, during the end phase, you can then search for a Dragon Monster and add it to your hand. That could be either from the deck or the graveyard to add to your hand, which is really powerful. And then there's also the 2 copies of Draw Swarm. This card just says that if it was sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target one special summon monster your opponent controls and sends it to the graveyard. That is just really powerful, and that is why we run the big steals. If you want to run more, you can. I just find that this works pretty well. Continuing on, we do, of course, run 3 copies of Lord of the Heavenly Prison. Lord of the Heavenly Prison just says you can reveal this card in your hand until the end phase of the next turn. And then while this card is revealed, neither player's set cards can be destroyed, which is just really powerful, being able to protect you from cards like Harpy's Feather Duster or Twin Twisters. However, this card has another effect that is also really powerful. It says that if either player activates a set card while this card is revealed, this cannot be on the same turn that you revealed it, so you got to keep that in mind. You can then special summon this card and then set one spell or trap, any spell or trap, from your deck to your side of the field. However, it is banished during the end phase. Alright, and to wrap up the monsters, we do, of course, run 2 copies of Lava Golem. I have had people ask me why I run this in main deck. I just find that this card is really powerful to help break boards when our opponents force us to go second, and this card just gets rid of 2 negations, or a negation and a disruption. And I just find that this is really powerful, and it's really easy to get over with cards like Mirror Jade, or you can even fuse it off with Fallen of Albaz, which is just really powerful. Continuing on, we do run 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity, just so we can add a little bit of extra consistency to the deck and be able to dig down for cards that we need. Continuing on into the Floodgates, we of course do run 3 copies of Skill Drain. This card just pretty much shuts down our opponent's board, and if we have the Eldlich cards that we need, like let's say Conquistador and Eldlich or Sanguine, we practically just win the game because we can just set up and use our effects in Graveyard or our trap effects in Hakero and Conquistador just to be able to mess with our opponent's field, and we don't really use our effects that much. When it comes to using the other cards in the deck, we mainly just use those as giant beaters that can help get us over opponent's monsters before we activate Skill Drain or even after we activate Skill Drain. So really, this card is just really powerful and should be run definitely at 3 in this deck. Continuing on, we do run 2 copies of Summon Limit. Summon Limit is just really in here just to slow down our combo-heavy opponents, which comes in a lot of handy because I actually beat Dark Arm Duelist with his Sword Soul deck, which that'll be up on his channel eventually, not sure when. However, Skill Drain was definitely better against that matchup. To wrap up the Floodgates, this card is a bit controversial with Eldlich. We do run 2 copies of There Can Be Only One. There Can Be Only One can really lock down certain opponents. However, as y'all are probably thinking, well, Eldlich and its Golden Land cards are all zombies, so really this card is not that good in this deck. However, you could always use the effect of Eldlich Engrave just to be able to add it back to the hand by destroying There Can Be Only One, so that way you get around the not being able to summon it, but you can just destroy this, get it off the field, and then you can continue playing on your turn or just whenever you need to, set up for game. Alright, moving on into the extra deck. Of course, we do run 2 copies of Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade is just really powerful, being able to send any monster from your extra deck to the graveyard just to destroy or banish one monster on your opponent's side of the field with attack less than or equal to that monster that was sent, which is just really powerful. Then, however, that is a once per every other turn, so you just gotta be careful in timing when to use it. Continuing on, we do run 2 copies of Albion the Branded Dragon. Albion just has the effect of when this card is summoned, you can then banish monsters from your graveyard or your side of the field to be able to fusion summon once again. So, of course, I would usually just be using the Albion to go into Mirror Jade by fusing itself and the copy of Fallen of Albaz from the graveyard just to make, of course, Mirror Jade. Continuing on, we do run 2 copies of Lubellion. Lubellion has the effect of when this card is fusion summoned, you can then discard 1 card to then shuffle the materials instead of banish, like Albion, to fusion summon into a fusion monster to your side of the field, which is just really powerful, being able to put back your Fallen of Albaz and maybe even your Lubellion, or if you have an Albion already engraved, you can just always return the Albion in the grave just to be able to summon out Mirror Jade. That is just really powerful. And continuing on, we of course do run 1 copy of Titaniclad the Ash Dragon. This card is just really powerful, being able to fuse with the Fallen of Albaz and any monster with 2,500 or more attack. This card also has the effect of this card gains 100 attack for the levels of each of the monsters that were used for the fusion material. So let's say you were to use Fallen of Albaz, which is level 4, and Eldlich the Golden Lord, that is 10. That would make it 14. This monster would gain 1400 attack just to become a 3900 attack monster, which is just insane. This card also has another effect that when this card is sent to the graveyard, during the end phase, you can then search for a Dogmatic card or Fallen of Albaz. That being said, I also did forget to mention that each of these, or at least these two, have effects that happen in grave. Mirror Jade's effect of when this card is sent to the graveyard, you can destroy all monsters on both players' side of the field during the end phase, which is also really powerful, and it does come up very often. And then we also do have Albion the Branded Dragon, which has the effect of you can then search for it to add to your hand, or you can set a branded spell or trap card, which is just really powerful. And I did not want to forget to mention those because those are very powerful and very usable. Continuing on for the Dogmatica cards, of course, we do have Titaniclad, which can be sent off of Nadir's Servant. We also do run one copy of Tier Elements Kit Kalos. This card is just really powerful, being able to mill the top 5 cards of your deck, which in this case is used mainly to try to get to your Eldlich cards. However, it can also be kind of a downside if you hit some of your floodgates, but really it shouldn't matter all too much as long as you can get your Eldlich cards in grave. Continuing on, we do of course run 2 copies of Elder Entity and Tis. This card is of course really powerful, being able to destroy 1 card on your opponent's side of the field. And really, I don't think I need to go into that card all too much. Alright, moving on into the Super Polymerization targets. Because we do run Super Polymerization in the side deck, we do, of course, run 1 copy of Garura. Garura is just really powerful, being able to fuse 2 monsters with the same type and attribute but different names on either player's side of the field using, of course, Super Poly. And then, Source Summon this monster. This card is a 1500 attack monster that whenever this card deals damage, its damage is doubled. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can then just draw 1 card. Continuing on, we, of course, do run 1 copy of Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. This card just requires 2 darks, and it can boost its own attack using its own effect, which is just really powerful. Then, of course, we do run 1 copy of Dragos Tapelia. This card is also really good. I know I say really good all too much. However, I am not lying when I say that this card is really powerful, because this card can just, while this card is on the field, you can just permanently negate one of your opponent's monsters, which is just powerful. Alright, and continuing on with the extra deck, we do run 1 copy of Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max. This card is just really powerful, being able to detach 1 material to be able to burn your opponent for 2,000 points of damage, which is pretty much our version of Cowboy for Game. And then we, of course, do run 1 copy of Link Spider. Link Spider is just in here to be able to get one of our Golden Land cards that are a monster off the field, so that way we can then use their graveyard effect, so that way we can then banish to be able to set a Elixir card. Alright, so that's going to be about it for the end of the video, guys. Be sure to leave a like, comment down below what you guys think of the deck profile, as well as if you really enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and check the Twitter down in the description. But with all that being said, guys, that's going to be about it. See ya.